mi gati?
We apologize to everybody on Zoom for the delay. Thank you for being here with us. We'll wait a couple more minutes for the journalists to do their work regarding the broadcasting. Okay, it's maybe to start with technical details while the journalists set up yet. If after reading the statement that CRIC has developed, in addition to the questions that we may get from the journalists present here in the room, we can also take questions from you on the platform. So I would ask to whether raise your hand so the question can be direct, or by writing it to the chat. However you see fit, you can ask your questions in either way. The questions don't need to be only on the topics that we focus on, but the entire process in general, because today we're only speaking about 4 elements, but doesn't mean that this doesn't mean that we will not focus on other topics that you would like to discuss as well. Ready? Can we start? Okay. So hello everyone again. Thank you for being here with us today in this first press conference that CRIC is developing and is holding in the framework of the action of the observation and monitoring the election of the Assembly of Albania, organized by CRIC and the support of 33 organizations recognized at local level, either in a human rights and democracy field. This is the first press conference. It was not scheduled, and we will focus on 4 issues that we consider immediate that should be brought to the public opinion, especially also the opinion of the relevant stakeholders such as political parties and institutional actors as well. In a complete analysis of the entire election process will be reserved for the first interim report that will be published in 2 weeks before the start of the official election campaign. This monitoring action, as I noted, is an action that will almost completely be focused, even though we're still developing the monitoring elements. And currently it is supported by the government of the UK, the Foreign Ministry of the Federal Republic of Germany, and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Great Luxembourg. And the opinions of here are opinions of CRIC exclusively, and do not represent the opinions or the official position of the donors. At the start of the statement, actually, we are all aware that the campaign has already started in Albania, because political parties are holding events which are clearly electoral, and they're calling on constituents to vote for them, and they're presenting platform points. So while this is in contradiction with the legal framework, and the election campaign starts 30 days before the election, it is when the mechanisms provided by the electoral code start, which make possible the equality in the campaign, such as media monitoring and so on and so forth. The reason why we call this press conference is related to the emergency situation that we as CRIC consider regarding 4 elements which are related to the integrity of the candidates and election transparency. The holding of the election process in the pandemic and the impact that this will have, especially to the right with regard to the rights of assembly and the right to vote, making possible the voting for expatriates, people living outside of Albania, and also the use of state resources during the election campaign. As regards the integrity of candidates, this is an issue that has taken much attention recently, especially from the important partners of Albania. The selection of candidates for the assembly has now been completed. The lists have been closed, and they have been deposited to the CEC by the political party. Now it's a time of the institution. That is why it's important for the CEC to implement the decriminalization law and the spirit of this law, operating scrupulously, seriously during the verification process for the self-declaration statements. In this framework, the civil registry office, prosecution courts, and so on and so forth should cooperate as much as possible and coordinate with the CEC for a complete verification and accurate and efficient verification process. The new parliament, as a product of the agreement of June 5th, should not be a shelter to the individuals that are subject of the so-called democratization law, and even those that represent illegal interests. The figures of the candidates are the most important part of the election offer that is developed by the political parties and that represent the party or the coalition when they seek to be representatives of citizens. Considering making the candidate and bringing back the candidate at the center of the competition, as is the spirit of the Constitution, CRIC calls directly to all running candidates, after having addressed the political parties, to so that these candidates declare voluntarily and completely their professional background and their engagements, their financial situation, their experience of their relations with the law, and also the election offer, which is personalized, since we are now in an open regional election system regarding the lists. This is related to the necessity to inform and the citizens regarding the full profiles of the candidates that will be elected, but also for leaderships and the proposing parties to be responsible and to be accountable for the team they selected to run, as an instrument to as a reform to also the internal selection process. Of course, the financial background, which is supposed to be voluntary, we call on candidates to disclose assets, financial assets, where they involved themselves or with relatives, the fiscal obligations of these assets, and also financial obligations to third parties. Everything, these are considered necessity and related to the spirit and the legal and constitutional obligations to ensure integrity and the cleanliness of the figure of the parliamentarian as the only representative of citizen interest. And this also is considered with regard to placing the candidates at the center. The provision of transparency is vital for participatory and functional democracy, especially in election campaigns. Transparency becomes even broader. In line with this spirit, we note that election processes have always lacked discussion regarding the electoral offer and the profiles of the candidates. They are just held as processes where the main interest was which one of the parties got more votes, and has turned into a process of clashes between political leaderships. Crick calls and asks the political parties to avoid this negative experience in these elections, giving Albanian citizens a quiet campaign and discussing visionary and profiles and the political platforms of both the candidates and the parties. The declarations in the media by the majority and the labeling used by the Prime Minister against some of the candidates running against him are in contradiction with this spirit, and they are the lead way and the segue to acceleration and this acceleration and of statements that will be contradictory and will be against the spirit. The questions for the end, the second topic is related to the holding of the election process in the condition of the pandemic. Order 633 of July 2020 of the Minister of Health does not allow party rallies and gatherings of more than 10 people. The Constitutional Court actually reviewed this, and according to the decision published by the media, the Minister of Justice should review the decision and should change it within 15 March. With regard to the above, is the only regulation, if we can call it as such, that the politics and Albanian institutions have undertaken regarding the election process in the pandemic. Even though it was completely understandable that the 25th April elections would be organized in pandemic, the political parties did not bring this issue. The political parties did not discuss this in the political council. Crick has raised this issue on June 16th, 2020, and called on the institutions and political parties and the political to consider this possibility and to develop scenarios for administering the elections in the pandemic, which has a call which has been repeated. The lack of reaction from political parties and institutions and the parliament, in especially regarding this situation for more than 9 months, shows that there is a lack of respect for the right of vote to vote as a fundamental right of citizens, and considers the process only as a mechanical voting process to mandate a political party. The statements of the recent statement of Mr. Edirama, the Prime Minister, regarding the voting of those infected by COVID, they will do the same as other countries did for those who have tested positive, have not, and they should stay home. This is an incomplete approach regarding the issue at large, and this statement is unacceptable and it's in violation of fundamental constitutional rights. The Albanian state has the obligation to guarantee all its citizens the right to vote. It is an inalienable right that the international conventions ratified by the Albanian state, which are also part of the constitution of the country, recognized for Albanian citizens. The restriction of this right foreseen by the constitution is only foreseen when the citizen is declared by a final decision, court decision, as mentally not able, or when he is convicted of a felony as provided. The restricting this right and exercising this right is an inalienable right, and it cannot be restricted in any situation. It's actually the job of the state to ensure this right regardless of cost and circumstances. If there is political will and respect for the right to vote, there are still possibilities as long as the Albanian parliament has not been dismissed to address this issue in the framework, in the legal framework. The practice of other countries that have held elections in the pandemic can be used as a guide for this in this relation. However, we need to note that restricting the right to vote for citizens infected with COVID on the election day, on the person's hospitalization, should be and can be avoided. Creek has shed light on the entire treatment of the case, and because a harsher situation can threaten the integrity of the process, while measures which are non-regulated with a legal framework can lead to an alibi to delegitimize the process and create possibilities to deform the process, or even worse, possibilities to go back to situations of crisis or instability that we hope we have left behind us after the June 5th agreement. We note that all citizens are prone to risks, starting from those who are engaged as commissioners in polling booths, counting observers, whether political or not, whether in the country or from abroad, media representatives and all other citizens involved in the process are at risk of infection, of course. We also see as a necessity to provide regulation for the transparency. The restriction in number of people that can get together and can rally in open or closed environment makes impossible the monitoring and the observation, and does not ensure transparency, and it makes it impossible because there is no direct contact and direct view with the process in voting centers for, of course, the observers of the political parties who would like to have their representatives there, but also independent observers or international observers or media. In addition, it makes impossible to follow the meetings of the election college, hearings in courts or CEC bodies when they are physically in the room for their meetings. As regards the vote of the immigrants, the political council was not able to regulate their right to vote and charged the CEC to organize this very important process, just saying that those who live outside the country should vote. Such a situation to delegate such a complex issue in addressing which the Albanian politics had failed for so many years, and to delegate this to an institution such as CEC with limited resources and limited competences, also after latest changes in the legislation, now we understand much clearly this entire initiative was just a political tactic and not a concrete and serious approach. The consequences of this and the possibility of having a failed initiative at the start obligated the CEC to be very careful in all steps that would make possible the vote for immigrants, noting the need for a political consensus so that the technical process would be able to work. This rational approach should be commended, because when there was no political will or institutional will, the application of arbitrary rules by the CEC and then implementing them could bring a decrease in the trust of the entire election process. Creek believes that we should understand that right now providing the right for the diaspora to vote is impossible at this time. noting this as a direct responsibility of the main political parties, which should serve for a political engagement on their side to fully regulate this right and to reform the legislation, and for these to be one of the main points of the next reformation of the election code, which should start with the new parliament. As regards the use of state resources, CRIC notes that this has been one of the main issues in our reality and democracy, the sophistication of this phenomenon, and especially the political patronage system that has been established requires contribution and interaction of all actors to free the will of the voter from any obligation or any illegal influence that abuses the public and state responsibilities undertaken by the relevant officials. As regards the new things of the legal regulation, of course, this needs to be commended, but in the meantime, and this has been noted by CRIC, we note that the efficiency of the instrument depends on an interactive approach of the CEC with other relevant institutions which monitor the activity of the public administration before, during, and after the election campaign, such as the Commissioner for the Supervision of Civil Service and the Supreme Audit Institution and other commissioners. Considering the gravity of the issues and without referring here to the criminal prosecution of the violation, there is a need for this mechanism to be functional and to make its concrete contribution in the election process. And CRIC has informed this before, and it's part of our opinion in the CC.
Actele în ligiore.
When the Senate legislation was developed, we have noted that the CEC is overloaded with legal competences, so while it has a limited administration in both number and expertise, and the number of legal instruments that have been attributed to the CEC is very limited in complying and in implementing these competences. The regulatory committee of the CEC, when they adopted the rules for the prohibition of use of state resources, was very much letter to the state, very much close to the letter of the law, and they did not look at how the gaps in the law could be used to use then state resources without considering the opinions and the recommendations of the NGOs, including CRIC here in civil society. The reporting increased after January 7th, and immediately after the DP filed with a SPAC a suit for abuse with state resources. We can say that the mechanism for the reporting of an activities of an institution has actually lost its meaning, and they do not have the effectiveness in achieving its objective. And it has become a bureaucratic and formal procedure. The many reporting have no detail and make impossible effective monitoring, while a special structure in the CEC is still lacking. The CEC does not have the human and financial resources to effectively monitor and bases its activity only on complaints received. As regards complaints, both sanctions provided by the Commissioner and raised by, imposed by the Commission, and which have are cases in the Committee of Appeals for sanctions. The later, the committee in its decision making with these two complaints, the first against Mr. Arbajaliu, an official of in Lucia, and in the Cadastro Directorate, and the second against the Mayor of Tirana. Both these decisions have rendered the mechanism even more ineffective. We have noted that in both cases, in the best case, CAS has shown that it is not part of the CEC and does not comply with the competencies of the law and the spirit of the Constitution. I'm sorry. and in the best case scenario, they have very narrowly read and formally read the legislation and interpreted the legislation. And they have not considered the experiences regarding decisions made by the European Court of Human Rights regarding what is a public posting on social networks, which have a certain weight regarding the fact that in the election code they are not foreseen. The behavior of high officials, high public officials, has not been in line with the spirit of the law, and they've used the gaps in the legislation to avoid the implementation of the normal law. The high officials are participating in events that are clearly used for election purposes, using the institutional events for election gain and showing the true approach and the real approach of political parties towards this mechanism and instrument, which will do nothing more but protect and consolidate, which will do nothing else but protect and consolidate the functioning, the adequate functioning of institutions and the work of public civil servants against any pressures from the any party or the majority in case. This was just about what we wanted to note in this regard for the public opinion. Of course, please, on the Zoom platform, you need to turn off your mics. If you're not speaking, please, we need your mics off. This was what CRIC wanted to share with the public opinion and the journalists. Of course, regarding all of these topics that we touched upon and beyond and for the entire election process in general, we will provide a complete monitoring report along with analysis, and also we'll have the relevant details as it is our practice, and which will be made public within the next 2 weeks before the election campaign starts. If now we're open for questions from the journalists in the room here or from the participants on Zoom, please raise your hand or write in the chat as well. I apologize, I cannot hear the journalist. As regards us, we may have information that has been provided regarding we have information regarding transparency and financial issues for campaigns, but this is not the aim of CRIC to identify specific individuals related to this. It is important for us to ensure a process and a system that filters and let's say cleans the public scene, especially Parliament, where the sovereign makes decisions for the future of society and also the democratic future of the country. And we don't want to have such individuals in this forum and in this aspect. Of course, as we have informed, it is not enough to narrowly consider the requirements of the competition law, however well written it is, even though it has its limits, of course, and its issues in implementation. But we need to go beyond that. We need to ensure the complete integrity and the professional integrity, moral integrity, financial integrity, and also in the end the adequate capacities to hold and to be a representative of the people's will. And what's most important is we see and that we have made known before, the same as our international partners, is related to the running of individuals that are either family members or are part of the joint and common interests. This is something that is completely related to the leadership will, political leadership will, and shows clearly that the broad membership of the political parties, especially the two large political parties which claim that they have some 100,000 members, have not been asked, because considering their will would mean that they would identify the merits of these candidates, whether within the political parties but also in the political action of these parties. These are individuals who are catapulted for many reasons, and which are put in great question. This is the reason why we have a clear call right now for the candidates in this press conference. We ask them to provide a complete CV of their work, and this is a legal obligation that they have, but it has never been met in the spirit provided by the CC. We'll see the CVs, I don't know this time, but previously the entire experience were related to one sentence. While it is an obligation for the citizens, through this obligation that the members of parliament have, and the publication the CEC does, the citizens should be informed on the past and on the engagements that relate this individual to the political side and the conflict of interest that they may have when they start to hold a position in parliament and to be members of parliament. On the other side, there's a need to have a transparency of financial resources. Everyone comes in to win. If they don't do that, if they don't come in, then we have a formalization or a misuse of the will of the voter. If they want to come in to win, they should run to win. Which means that right after they win in September, when they become member, they should have a transparency of the conflicts of interest, assets, and relations with members with them. That's why we're asking for this to be done now as a sign of goodwill, but to also show that they are clean from a point of view of illegal interests, which from the aspect. So to see what interests these individuals have, and in this aspect, I would benefit from your question to call all the citizens, and this would be the messages that CRIC will actually provide during its information campaign that we want to start for citizens with their votes, in order for them to benefit from the open list and to vote those individuals, those candidates who they believe are have integrity, whether moral, legal, and professional. Regardless of the fact whether this candidate will be elected or not, regardless of the fact that generally the candidates that will be members of parliament will be those that will be in the safe part of the lists deposited. If it comes out that candidates with integrity who are at the end of this have gotten the largest number of votes than those above them, this will be a clear approach and a clear show that will require, I believe, also more concrete engagement by the political parties to consider this and to build their internal organization. So it's a clear message of the citizen in the political parties, even though we are in a system that does not allow the citizens to clearly express their will. Any other questions? Elisabetta, yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the press conference, which truly highlights the concerns that we have as people in society. Everything you said to date is very valid, but I have a concern that the people needs to be kind of shaken a little bit. We are in a situation where people and individuals in the society are not very motivated to request information and to see who are the actual candidates and what they represent. And, so what can we do as a society to provide more information to the people regarding so that they have the possibility to elect the as best possible the candidates that represent them. We know that the will to elect and to select, I'm sorry, the candidates is of course in the lies with the leadership of the parties, but on the other hand, the people kind of has nothing to say in this regard. So we need to find a mechanism so we can provide information on the candidates, especially regarding and also regarding the majority, which are more in number. First and second, I don't know. I don't have the possibility to read this, but when political parties have started their campaigns much earlier, are there any penalties or what's a procedure that would penalize them? Is there a procedure that would penalize the parties regarding this? Thank you. Anything else or no? No, that's it. Thank you. Let's start with the second one, the preemptive campaign. Of course, this remains to the interpretation of the CEC. Actually, the state commissioner for elections. I like to note here the experience of the 2015 elections. So when the CEC chair at the time, Madam Eleftheria Luzi, took a measure and called on the political parties to suspend the preemptive campaigns, otherwise they would take administrative measures, which was followed with pressure from all political parties and actually made the CEC again withdraw into its cave again, let's say. So it is quite clear that this space has been provided, and the political parties will, of course, not comply with the law in this regard. What is concerning actually regarding all of this, and also regarding how the political will is behaving with regard to the use of state resources, also the failure of this mechanism, or the failure to ensure the vote for diaspora, or other elements that have overloaded the CC without providing it with all of the relevant instruments, and they've even limited the scope of the CC. So from Central Election Commission said one time voted by referendum to be part of the constitution and to ensure the integrity of the vote, it has become an institution that only administers the election process. So this clearly shows what is the will of the political parties regarding the consolidation of independent institutions, in this case the CSC. In regarding to this, the concern is that these are, of course, in contradiction with the aspirations of the June 5th agreement, and especially the two main parties are having an approach to go into a new political agreement. And there's nothing wrong with that. There can be a new political agreement, but the obligations of the June 5th agreement should not be accompanied by failure to implement the law and impunity. This is the wrong way. There are moment and other mechanisms of dialogue where political parties can use in their favor to also find other political parties or to come to political agreements and to ensure a wider political will to undertake a larger and deeper reforms. But this approach seems like an intentional approach. I can call it that, considering all of the behavior towards the mechanism towards the support, the lack of attention, and the continued violation of the rights of citizens or the provisions of the election code, either with the campaign or the campaign in the administration, and the use of state resources quite openly, and then hiding behind the letter of the law. This is nothing else but nothing then going back to the 2012 reform. We're repeating that and everything that happened after and taking back everything that was done until the meeting of the political council until 2020. And I hope that this doesn't happen. And as regards we as citizens, but we as groups and the media, it is very important for all of us to raise awareness among citizens in the personal circle of everyone with the tools that they have regarding the functioning of the mechanism and to inform how important it is for in the parliament to sit down people that and to make sure that in that parliament are people that are unbiased and have no influences. So that is why the partners are raising their voices, because something like this means nothing else. Means that the system will be taken hostage for another 4 years at least. But it would be more than that because the next parliament will basically include the agreement of June 5th, and it foresees also that the next parliament will continue to implement the justice reform. So basically, what would be at the nutshell of this agreement? Will it be the interest of the citizen, or will it be the directed vote and the vote taken hostage by different interests? So we need to inform citizens on how important it is for them to evidence with their vote any individual that can be at the end of the list, or that they believe that they are the unimpacted and impartial candidate. And this will be a strong message for all actors, but also for international partners, so that when the reform comes, we have an actual broad and deep reform, or better to say, we need a complete election reform, so a new code, a law on political finance, and of course referendums to bring the citizen at the center of the political sphere. Any other questions? Actually, yes. Can we add one question here, Pronto? Yes. One, yes, but we have some others, so quickly, please. What can we do about the communication that is being used, that the political parties are using? Can we, as organizations, make a specific call regarding all the communication of the campaign of political parties, because it's concerning as far as I'm seeing. When you're talking about communication, what do you mean? Communication that the leaders are using, the persons that are there to lead the. Are you talking about the ethics or the community? Yes, ethics in communication. Yes, which of course it's not related only to the representatives of the political parties, but also others as well, because everything is online and on the media as well. When of course, it is quite important, and we kind of touched this a little bit in the statement. The latest statement of prime ministers against some of the opponents are concerning to us. They, of course, and they're not acceptable, but they are unacceptable because they could be the start of a new harsh rhetoric that can make the situation even more unstable, which is unfavorable to an adequate election process and cannot ensure a quiet election campaign where you reflect the candidates and you present the platform. The eclipsing of so making impossible the presentation of the programs and platforms or the candidates in an adequate and efficient manner, and eclipsing this obligation and legal obligation of the international principles and constitution and law, which require the information of the citizens before they go vote. This game, living in the shadows of this obligation and being in complete contradiction with and the accusations and the rhetoric should end, because of course it's an obligation within the June 5th agreement, which are the obligation to take to the end and to fruition, and should end to make possible a better trust of the citizens in the process, because this of course will allow only the partisan and the militants to participate in the process, and the gray area will abandon the process because of this, as has happened. And actually this is what the political parties want, because it creates a good situation for their calculations, their political calculations. What makes calculations difficult or sometimes impossible is massive participation, but this massive participation should be completely ensured. Not only COVID, but any other thing that would seem to be impossible to fix. We are in time, the parliament is still in session, and we need to make a legal regulation regarding this to ensure that all citizens vote, even those who are in a hospital should have a vote. And we can only need to mention the spirit of the law here, when it was part of when the CEC was part of the constitution and the election was there. We should have a specific polls even in the hospitals. Why would they be there? The law provides for that, but they haven't touched it. Even in the COVID hospital, there should be special voting polls. The election code says that. There's an order of the Minister of Health, is an order of the Minister of higher than the provision of the election code. The politics and especially majority should have addressed this. They had 9 months. They should ensure the best political will with all of the political actors involved, and they should regulate this so that all citizens are provided with the right to vote. Anything to add in this regard? No. I can't read the question from over here. I'm sorry. I apologize. Can you read it? So there's a question how the law is implemented to control the activity of the institution promoting various events and activities. It's what we touched upon, but we didn't go into detail. Of course, we have material of facts, but we try to stick to the conclusions, preliminary conclusions. It is concerning, because it was one of the mechanisms that was used widely and broadly, and the political parties are kind of used to abusing these official positions, and what helped them this time around was the cost decision, which made ineffective the mechanism and the role of the CEC. On the other hand, the posting on social networks hiding behind the fact that social networks are no longer media, are not the media, actually in the discussion and the decisions and the issues that have been considered by the European Court of Human Rights and in other similar cases, they have noted regarding to this that social networks today, for as long as they are public profiles, have the same and provide the same access to the entire group of those who are part of the network at the time. So all of the subscribers, if they can call it this way. So, which means that when you post on Facebook at that time, you have 8 million people, potentially all 8 million people have been informed potentially regarding to the post. And this means that this is not a media. Of course, expressly is not provided in this manner, but on the other hand, the law on civil servants provides that they recognize the right to the civil servant to exercise their political rights. But the political rights is to be part of information meetings that the party can have after the business hours, but only to participate. So it's their personal right to exercise political rights, but not to do propaganda. This law regulates this, and the provisions of the previous provisions of the Commissioner for Politics and the same have provided this. The civil servant cannot even wear or hold materials which are basically propaganda material or election materials, and not even to be a speaker or to do campaigning, to go campaigning. In such a case, this person is persecuted and may lose the status of the civil status, the civil servant status. But since the law is clear, what happens to their profile on Facebook, a public profile, which has become a method of communication, especially in the pandemic, where the contact is more difficult in a direct manner, and the majority use Facebook for this communication. And this official on Facebook is not a private profile, but has a public profile. I'm talking about low levels of administration, not even the higher officials. So even the simplest specialist that has a public profile, they are recognized as a state employee, and they should never in their profile post anything about a campaign or share postings from political parties or political exponents. So this is a violation. What should be brought and what should be noted to the CEC, to CAS, and to the Regulatory Commission is to understand that this mechanism is there to ensure something very important for the citizen, not to be influenced, not to be threatened in their freedom to express their will and their vote the way they see fit, for the equality in the race to be ensured, so that the official position to not be used for political gain. Anyone who is a state employee is temporary in that pyramid developed by the Albanian society, and which ensures the continuity and the progress of the entire society and the democratic future of the country. Political parties take their power and they apply their platforms, but they have no right to abuse these official positions. So the power of the official, it is not the personal power of either of them, in any of them, or the parties. It is the institutional power and competence that the people have given to the state, and the state is separate from the party, especially in election campaigns. These are fundamental principles that the parties know very well, but today in the entire rhetoric and of fights against without content to each other, they sell these principles as they were their wishes. No, these are obligations that the Albanian state has ratified and has made them part of the legislation from constitution downward, and these are the obligations that protect these citizens. So these things need to be informed and need to be propaganda, especially those who have more information at the media level and any other possibility to share with the youth or other groups. As we are concerned regarding what can be done currently, we have a series of initiatives that have been proposed in civil society. One is to, as the regulatory committee and organizations have already done this, to review the case again, while we believe that we could ask the Prime Minister in another initiative in line with previous practices to adopt DCM that will serve as a resource of law to regulate this, because of course the entire campaign will be on social networks because of the pandemic, not considering also that the media get their sources immediately from social media. So it's no longer a social media and social network, but it becomes a media as well. Any other questions? How do you see the role of the president in these elections? Here's a question. As regards the president, we can say that regardless of criticism argumented and the decisive role that the president has played, the political stage and the institutional stage in Albania need points of reference, and the president should be a point of reference, regardless of whether the parties or other actors may overstep their legal limits. The approach should be institutional and not partisan. In this case, the recent statements of the president are inadequate, even though he's the president of the Republic, regarding direct engagement with accusations about the campaign or raising concerns. We can do such like this as actors of civil society, the new political parties, any legal or private or business entity which basically suffering from that part of the violations or threats. But the president as an institution should have an institutional approach and should find the adequate instruments to address this. Especially in this campaign, it would be good for that institution to reflect equilibrium and balance and hope for the establishment, development of institutions and state building of the Albanian state. Because we are just overcoming 1 or 2 or 3 steps, and then we go into a crisis and we go back to the first phase of the state building. So we wish this is not the case in these elections. And the statements, which are very drastic, actually concern the citizens. We forget that what is important is for the lay citizens to have a calm situation and to get clear messages about the political platform that they believe will ensure a accountable and fair governance and security within the law for their rights in the future. If this calm and if this comfort does not exist in this approach, what remains in the end is nothing else but what we have seen in the last 30 years of transition. Political parties that only create artificial conflict, that rotate in power, while Albanians, citizens, and especially the youth, see their future outside this country. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. The press release will be sent by email as well, of course. If you have a need for additional information and for more comments, and that we can provide, or if you require a statement, please contact the CRIC. And the next public statement will be in 2 weeks to publish the first interim report, which will include the period from the decreeing of the date of election until March 23rd. Anything else that can't add? Okay. Thank you very much to everyone for participating, and we wish you good health to everyone. Thank you very much.